you started today with renewing your vows, I thought I'm just going to be, I don't know what you call it, but anyway, I thought I would read to you as an opening this morning my chapter that I wrote for the rule. I went out and talked to St. Benedict about it yesterday, and he approved of it. So went out there and had a nice talk with your statue, and he said, oh, go ahead, just go ahead and read it. It's nothing you don't know, it's just a summary of everything. And I call it Chapter 74, Keeping Monastic Profession Daily Before One's Eyes. Listen, my daughters, be attentive and daily remember your commitment of monastic profession. Through this ritual, you publicly, willingly, and unreservedly commit your entire life to God within this monastic community under a prioress and the Holy Rule, and you promise a life of obedience, stability, and conversatio without reserve, forever. This total gift of yourself in monastic profession is characterized by fidelity to monastic practice and observance, to the Opus Dei, to Lectio Divina, in service to one another, living the common life in all of its aspects, a dispossession of holding all things in common, the good stewardship of all of the monastery's property, and the giftfulness of its membership. Daily remembering monastic profession will deepen your commitment to God, enable you to live the life faithfully, with good zeal, with great joy and generosity. Amen. So now if we can remember that, and I challenge myself to remember that daily, I tell you, that's really something. Well, it's nice and bright in this room this morning. I can just see the light coming from you. And I can smell the saltiness and taste it a little bit. I think you're just really coming alive in a great way. And then that monastic profession this morning, you're just shining. You're just shining. That's wonderful. And it's great to be salt and to be light. But we ask ourselves, how can we be salt and light? You know, with all of our limitations of our present day. After all, you know, I'm only one person, not particularly educated. Me, I'm talking about me now, I'm not particularly educated. I only have, you know, so much time and energy. After all, I'm 72 now. You know, I've gotten older. So while all these are true facts, still we have to start believing, and really believing, that we're fully alive. That we're fully alive, no matter what age. At 72, I'm still fully alive, right? So you know me, I have to say, I got to share a story with you that kind of makes this a little bit more alive for me. I've been reflecting on this story for a long time. A father left his village on business, and while he was gone, bandits came and burned down the village and kidnapped his son. When the father returned, he found a burned corpse near his home and thought it was the remains of his son. The father almost went mad with grief, and after an elaborate cremation ceremony, placed the ashes of his son in a beautiful velvet bag, which he carried with him always, this bag. One day, the son escaped from his kidnappers, and he arrived at his father's home at midnight. He knocked, and his father, who was holding that bag of ashes near his heart, said, "Who is there?" The child answers, "It is me, Papa. Open the door. It is me, your son." But the father was so certain that his son was dead that he told the boy to stop tormenting him and go away. The boy knocked and knocked and knocked, but the Father never answered. The Father never answered. He held that velvet bag close to his chest in great mourning and cried without ceasing. Finally, the child left, and the Father and the Son never saw one another again. Well, that's sad, isn't it? I bet you didn't expect it to end that way, did you? You thought he'd finally go open the door, didn't you? He didn't. He didn't, not in that story anyway. That's a Thich Nhat Hanh story, by the way, a Thich Nhat Hanh story. And it just makes us wonder, doesn't it? What things, maybe what attitudes, what opinions, what areas in our life that we cling to so closely that they prevent us from seeing what it is that we really desire. Is there anything that we're keeping from ourselves? Do we cling to something that is not what it seems in order to grieve what we think we have lost? Is it such false grieving that prevents us from opening up the door to possibilities that can bring about our heart's desire? You have to think about that. I know. What are the bags we're holding to? Those bags of ashes. In essence, I guess what I'm asking is if we are sitting in our respective bedrooms or homes, as the oblates are, clinging to these ashes of my spiritual life that really only matters maybe on Sundays. I'm too old and grumpy to smile at her today. Really? Only I think our limitations are only limited by our imagination, and that's the only thing that really limits us. We can really open up more than we think we can, no matter what our age is. My father and the father in this story, not my father, dear God, the father in this story, could not imagine that his son might still be alive. He couldn't imagine that. But perhaps a different scenario had taken place than the one he first thought. I would think about my story with that sister in Clyde, who was always arguing with me about every job to do. I thought she just didn't like doing them and didn't want doing them until I finally opened up my mind enough to talk to her and find out, she was just playing her usual game, of debating. We're going to see who wins that debate out. So all we need to do sometimes is, just open our hearts and think in a new way. Maybe there is something else going on there that I need to talk to her about. All he needed to do was really believe, that our word trust again. Risk disappointment and open the door. And sometimes we have to do that to our own hearts. Open the door. Or the words of Maya Angelou, I think can be quite instructive here. She says the best part of life is not just surviving, but thriving. But thriving. Not just surviving, but thriving. I like that. And she says surviving with passion and compassion, with humor and style, with generosity and kindness. That last word is my special word. I love that. So the best part of life is not just surviving, but thriving with passion and compassion, with humor and style, with generosity and kindness. We are only limited, my sisters, by our own imagination. That's the only thing that limits what we can do. What do we need to do to be salt for the earth and light for the world? What do we need to do? Keeping in mind the big picture, the large perspective, in other words, the large perspective. What do we need to do to keep our salt fresh and our light burning? Personally, and maybe also, as community, as families, in our oblates, our families, in our communities. What do we need to do to be fully alive? if we truly believe that our first priority of discipleship is to really to build that reign of God, living the Sermon on the Mount, then we must first truly believe that we are alive. You know, that we have something to give. I mean, it doesn't mean that we all have to go up and give talks in front of the Senate or Congress or anything like that. It can be just the little things here at home. Just the little things here at home. Doing those little acts of kindness. I think only when we are daring enough to, make those kinds of choices of opening those doors, of being kind for one another, that will assure us of a visible sign of the love of Christ in our way of acting. It means risk-taking, and it means a lot of faith. And it takes a lot of faith, but we remember Jesus' words to us, I am with you, I love you, trust me. I'll help you on this journey. I'm right here, I'm with you. And as Joan reminded us, it means, dancing when we can't hear the music. It's just giving our all even when we can't hear the music. We need to be courageous enough to make decisions that carry us into the future, to make sure that there are North American Benedictines around in this next century, and not just isolated, that we're concerned about that we're engaged in that, involved in that, and not just isolated individuals clinging to bags of ashes, hiding in our bedrooms because I don't have anything to offer. I think if we can live our lives in hope and with creativity, soundly living that Sermon on the Mount, which I'm sure you did your homework last night and read through those chapters in Matthew, and beautiful, beautiful chapters, aren't they? 5, 6, and 7. I think then we will be really faith-filled, courageous women involved daily in building that reign of God on this earth. Can't you hear the knocking? Christ wanting to come into our lives and have us be the light for the world, the salt for the earth. Marcel Barros, a monk from Brazil, writes, each church and each community is a rehearsal for the reign of God. I like that too. It's a rehearsal for the reign of God. How deliberate are we then in living our lives so that it communicates what is God's dream for humankind? And we know that dream is harmony. He wants harmony for humankind. And on this hill, in this monastery, people are going to see that. They're going to experience that. But do we have the generosity of spirit and that tenacity? I've asked you this before. Do we have that generosity, that tenacity, the integrity and the resolve, that resolve to change what needs to be changed in ourselves first, personally, and how we live together in community to be that rehearsal for the reign of God? What is our gift that we have to give the church as monastic women, as oblates? What do we have to offer the world? Because we've gathered here this week, we've given this time. How is anything going to be different or changed because I have been here and listened to this woman all week long? I think we learn from Jesus the way God is, as Jesus set about building that reign of God on this earth. We learned it all from him. We have that gospel as our guide. We are Christians. We are monastics. If our lives are well lived, and we can then be, I think, that reservoir of hope, a beacon of that reign in the world that's so beset with division and violence. We could not be needed more than we are right now at this moment in 21st century. We are so needed now. This convincing hope that our lives of prayer and charity are needed and relevant. It's worthy of our best efforts. Who we are called to be as Benedictines in our rule, in our gospel, worthy of our best efforts right now, particularly. Our monastic life, our Christian life as oblates, is of timeless value, involving us daily in building that reign of God on this earth. All that we think, all that we do, all that we say should contribute to that end, unifying and making us one. Unifying and making us one. The actual living well of the daily, the little things of each day. It's not great, big, huge things, it's the little things of each day, contributing to that larger purpose of the church. In other words, the life of true Christians finds its very purpose and meaning in that priestly prayer that we find in the Gospel of John, that they may all be one. That they may all be one. A sure witness to a very fragmented world. A rehearsal of the reign of God. So as we live our lives as Christians, as monastics, in the daily humdrum of everyday circumstances, hoping for peace, let us truly be peace for one another. Be peace for one another, giving the world a witness to an alternative way of living, always with a view to furthering that reign of God. I think taking time for quiet reflection, during our busy days, taking our time to sit down with Lectio Divina, slows down, and it really makes us sure that we do not allow short-sightedness, remember that short-sightedness, to narrow our vision so that we become bogged down with things that really don't matter in the big picture. Keep our perspective in line. That is very important. What does this mean in the light of eternity? My little thing when I get upset. What does this mean in the light of eternity? If I die tomorrow, Karen, will that really matter? Probably not. This retreat, this pause in the ordinary time of life is our time for reaching, inside of ourselves, to our souls, to what is really important to us and what really makes a difference in our lives. That's why we're here this week. That's why we've given this much time to our listening spirits. The glory of God, remember, the glory is, Irenaeus says, the glory of God is woman, fully alive, fully alive. May God be glorified through our time here together. May it reveal, continue to reveal the light of Christ always. So just by conclusion here, as you move through the coming days, the coming weeks, the coming months, I hope and pray that it will be a time of really renewing your own prophetic witness. As I mean really prophetic, when I say prophetic, I mean witness. Your prophetic commitment to live our monastic life with as much authenticity as possible. That provides the world with an alternate vision to war and violence, to barriers and boundaries, to prejudices and consumerism. Let's not congeal. Get stuck in one place. Think we're all finished. No, I hate to tell you, we're not finished yet. Not yet. If we can do this, I am confident with the help of God, from within our homes, within our workplaces, our churches, our neighborhoods, we will together, I think, have one very loud voice proclaiming peace, peace, peace to our battered and fearful world. And I think that is what we have to offer. So be salt, be light, and be fully alive. Fully alive. Be a Christian witness, living with passion, with joy, and with hope. After all, as Leon Boyce says, joy is the most infallible sign of the presence of God. I have that quote on my bedroom door at home. Joy is the most infallible sign of the presence of God. No, as Oscar Romero says, we cannot do everything, and there is a sense of liberation in realizing it. This enables us to do something and do it very well. It means it may be incomplete, but it's a beginning, a step along the way, an opportunity for God's grace to enter and do the rest. Like that. We may never see the end results, but that is the difference between being the master builder and the worker. We are workers, not master builders, ministers, not messiahs. So please know, I'm not expecting you to be a messiah, but just to be living our lives with great integrity and mindfulness. We are prophets of a future, not our own. That was Oscar Romero too. That last little word there was Oscar Romero. So I have to conclude this retreat with a very special quote. When I was giving retreat at, I believe I was in Bristol, and about halfway through the retreat, a nice, gentle little elderly sister came up to me and she said, Sister Karen, I think you would like this. And she gave me a little piece of paper. It couldn't have been any bigger than this. And she had typed it out. And she said, I think you'll like this quote. And I've ended every retreat with this quote. She was right. I loved it. She was precious. She's now in eternity. Life is not a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving safely in a pretty and well-preserved body, but rather to skid in broadside, thoroughly used up, totally worn out, and loudly proclaiming, wow, what a ride. So, again, be salt, be light, be fully alive, and I wish each of you a very hope-filled, joy-filled life, and let's get on with it. And let us be that reservoir of hope for our world. Let's get on with it, huh? Wow, what a ride. So God bless you. Thank you so much for your listening and your kindness. Your hospitality was outstanding. So thank you so much. It's been wonderful to be back in St. Paul. So you're always welcome to visit Ferdinand anytime you want to come. Okay, God bless you. Thank you so much.